At 09:17 local time, this Australian P-8 Poseidon was cruising at 21,000 feet south of the Paracel Islands, running its standard reconnaissance pattern. 2 hours of routine flying, Beijing scrambled their most advanced fighter to send a message. Little did the Chinese Su-35 know that this was exactly what Australia wanted. 10 seconds later, Su-35 exploded from the clouds ahead, twin engines in full afterburner, closing at nearly the speed of sound. The fighter crossed their nose at 6 feet, so close the Australians could see the pilot's helmet pivot toward them. At their combined closure rate of 994 miles per hour, the margin between intercept and collision less than half a second. The wake turbulence slammed into the Poseidon like an invisible fist. The 190,000-pound patrol plane rolled hard.
At 19,000 feet above the South China Sea, one wrong move could have killed 11 Australians in less than 3 seconds. The Chinese fighter pilot thought he was sending a warning. What he didn't realize was that he had just handed over some of China's most guarded military secrets. The Australian P-8A Poseidon was flying a routine maritime surveillance mission in international airspace. Altitude steady at 19,000 feet. Airspeed 420 knots. Autopilot engaged. Inside the cockpit, everything was calm. Engines humming smoothly, radar sweeping wide arcs across open water. Just another patrol. Then the radar warning receiver chirped. A fast-moving contact was climbing hard from below, closing rapidly. No civilian aircraft accelerates like that. Within seconds, the electronic support measure system identified the signature. A Chinese J-16 multi-role fighter. Twin engines. Heavy payload capacity. Built for air superiority. The Australians didn't react emotionally. They reacted professionally. The tactical coordinator began recording all emissions. The ALQ-240 electronic surveillance suite started cataloging frequencies, pulse repetition intervals, and signal strength. Every radar sweep from the approaching fighter was being logged in real time. 10 seconds later, the J-16 exploded into view off their right wing. Full afterburner. Shock diamonds glowing bright orange. The fighter crossed just 300 feet ahead of the P-8's nose. At a combined closure speed of nearly 900 miles per hour, the margin between intimidation and collision was less than a heartbeat. The wake turbulence hit instantly. The 189,000-pound patrol aircraft rolled sharply left as invisible vortices slammed into its wings. The autopilot disconnected with a sharp tone. Stick shaker rattled briefly. The pilots countered smoothly, bringing the aircraft level again. No panic, just training. The Chinese pilot pulled up aggressively, then banked hard and slid into position barely 150 feet off the Australian plane's wingtip. Close enough that the Australians could see the pilot's visor reflect sunlight. Close enough to read the missile markings. The Chinese pilot believed proximity meant control, but proximity also meant exposure. The P-8's MX 20HD electro-optical turret rotated silently beneath the fuselage. High-definition cameras locked onto the fighter. Zoom factor increased. Every rivet line, every antenna, every external pod was now captured in crystal clarity. Infrared sensors mapped heat signatures across the engines, exhaust plume temperature, avionics cooling vents, even slight hotspots along the wing routes. The J-16 wasn't just flying close, it was giving a full technical demonstration. 2PL-15 long-range air-to-air missiles hung beneath the inboard pylons. Active radar-guided. China's most advanced beyond-visual range weapon. 2PL-10 short-range infrared missiles on the wingtips. The exact loadout was now documented, photographed, time-stamped, transmitted through encrypted satellite link back to Australian Defence Intelligence. The Chinese pilot rocked his wings the international signal for follow me. The P-8 maintained heading. 095 degrees. Speed unchanged. Altitude steady. Inside the Australian aircraft, nobody raised their voice, because they understood something the fighter pilot did not. Every second he remained close, he was broadcasting data. His fire control radar switched modes. The radar warning receiver inside the P-8 immediately detected the shift from search to track while scan. That meant tighter beam focus, higher power concentration. The ALQ-240 captured it all. Frequency bands, modulation patterns, sweep timing. China spends billions protecting those numbers. Tonight, they were being vacuumed up for free. The J-16 suddenly dropped back, then surged forward again, this time crossing directly in front of the P-8 at less than 100 feet. That was not standard interception procedure. That was deliberate intimidation. And it was dangerous. The jet wash struck like a hammer. The Poseidon's nose pitched up 5 degrees. Airspeed fluctuated 30 knots in seconds. One engine coughed briefly as disturbed airflow entered the intake. Warning lights flickered, then stabilized. The crew adjusted power settings carefully. The Chinese pilot likely felt powerful watching the larger aircraft struggle in turbulence. What he didn't see was the Australian data link indicator glowing green. Every second of high-definition video, every radar emission, every engine performance fluctuation, already transmitted, already stored safely thousands of kilometers away. Then the fighter did something even more reckless. It climbed sharply above the P-8, rolled inverted, and positioned itself directly overhead, less than 200 feet separation. Upside down, holding position through thrust vectoring and flight computer precision. It was impressive flying. It was also a gift. From that angle, the Australian cameras captured the fighter's entire underside, weapons bay doors, sensor pods, even the serial markings near the engine housings. Infrared imagery mapped the exact temperature distribution while inverted flight stressed fuel systems and hydraulic lines. Australian analysts had studied J-16 performance for years using satellite images and intelligence fragments. Now they were receiving full-motion, high-resolution proof. The fighter rolled upright and descended again, this time settling just ahead of the P-8's flight path. Too close. Much too close. The collision warning system began issuing traffic alerts. The J-16 reduced throttle abruptly. Its speed dropped from 420 knots to 260 in seconds. The heavy patrol plane behind it had far less maneuverability. Turbofan engines spool down slower than fighter engines. Physics does not negotiate. Closure rate increased rapidly. For 5/10 seconds, it looked like a mid-air collision was unavoidable. The P-8 crew reduced power carefully, trading altitude for separation. Stick shaker activated intermittently as airspeed approached stall margin. The fighter held position just ahead, forcing the Australians into a narrow performance envelope. It was a calculated pressure tactic. But it exposed something critical. The Australians recorded the fighter's deceleration curve, engine response time, minimum controllable speed at altitude, throttle reacceleration rate. Those numbers define energy management in combat. Those numbers determine how to trap a fighter in future engagements. The J-16 finally powered up again, engines roaring back to military thrust, diving away beneath the P-8 with barely 120 feet separation. More data logged, acceleration profile captured, thermal bloom analyzed. The Chinese pilot believed he was proving dominance. What he was actually doing was writing an instruction manual on how to defeat his own aircraft.